Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to day 15 of the holiday card series for 2018. I have to apologize for not saying hello on camera today. It's been a crazy day. So it's at the end of the day and I'm editing this video. So sorry. I'm not saying hello today. But anyway, for day 15 of the holiday card series, I'm using that stamp set you just saw on screen from Waffle Flower. The stamp set's actually intended for swatching your watercolor paints. They came out with a few swatch stamp sets a few months back, and this is a new swatch stamp set. And I was really taken by these outline circle stamps, and I thought it'd be really fun to stamp the row of circles and then move it and slightly rearrange it so that the next row down overlaps the first row, and then do a third row after that. And that would give me some fun intersecting areas to put at different colors. So I'm going to be mixing it up and using, I think I've got 4 or 5 different shades that are sort of Christmassy in my mind. There's some reds and greens and some aqua shades. So I'll be using those today. The first thing I did was prep my watercolor paper with an anti-static powder tool. I'm going to be heat embossing these circles just so it's going to be a little bit easier to paint within those contained areas. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once I get to the painting portion of the video. So I first stamped this row or column of circles, and then I coated them in white embossing powder. So I stamped them first in Versamark ink and then coated them in some alabaster embossing powder from Burtis Monroe, and then heat set them with my heat tool. And you just want to put that watercolor paper in the light so you can see the texture of the powder. And then as soon as that powdery texture melts, you can move on and it's ready to keep going. So I went to the next row of circles. It's a little bit hard to see on camera. I could see them in person, so I was able to position them just right, but on camera it's really hard to see since it is white on white. I then did the same thing for the third row of circles. And these aren't perfectly positioned. I think in a perfect world, I probably would have had these circles positioned just a little bit differently. But in the end, it's not that noticeable. So I decided not to worry about it. So after all of the circle stamps were heat embossed, I put my watercolor piece on a hard board and taped it down using some blue painter's tape. And then I went into the watercoloring. So like I mentioned before, I've got about 4 or 5 different shades. I have a kind of a nice green, a mid-tone green, and that's the first color I'm painting with. And I'm using that color in various different areas, moving across the stamped area. I don't want any of the same color to be used in sections that are next to each other. So I want to move this around and get a nice spread of this color. So after I have all of this green done, I'm going to move on to this aqua shade. And it's kind of a medium mid-tone aqua right now. And as I move it across, when I get to the end, I'm actually going to just take that same little puddle of color that's on my palette and I'll just add a ton more water to it so that it lightens it and dilutes it down so that it's much more pale. And that's going to give me my third color. So here it is, really, really watered down. And as I fill these sections, it can be a lot of water since it is so light. So if you get any like big puddles, you can dry your brush off and then use your brush to sop up some of that paint. So the fourth color I'm bringing in is this nice red shade. I did take one of the red colors in my Magellan Machine Gold palette and I added just a hint of yellow to it. I wanted it to be a little bit more on the warm orangey side as opposed to a more blue toned red, which is to me a traditional Christmas red has a little more blue tone to it. It's a little bit of a cooler red, but I wanted this red to be really warm. In fact, this color palette, before I talk about that, I just watered down that red color to get the last shade. This color palette I came across and decided to do it. I looked up online. I just Googled Christmas color palette and this popped up and I thought, oh, those colors are so pretty. And so I'm using some color inspiration that I found online. So I hit that with my heat tool just to speed up the drying process, but you definitely don't have to do that. You could air dry it. And then I trimmed this piece down. The original watercolor paper was 5x7, and I'm going to be making a regular A2 sized card, so I did trim it down. I'm now taking a Posca paint pen. It's the extra fine tip, and I'm adding some white dots and some stripes and different things like that. I just wanted to break up all of this solid color and give it a little bit of interest. This really reminds me of quilting for some reason. I think because a few years ago I saw a bunch of quilts made with some fabric that were similar colors, and it had a fun pattern mixing in the quilt, and it just really reminded me of that. So I thought it'd be fun to do some dots and stripes. I've prepped my card base that's made out of some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. I just scored that at 5.5 to create a top folding card, and then I adhered my watercolor piece. Now, I forgot to do the greeting first, so here I am deciding on the greeting. I'm using the Tiny Words Holiday stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and I decided on the phrase comfort and joy, and I'm going to stamp that off to the side using some Versamark ink. And then I'll go ahead and coat that stamp with some gold embossing powder. This is the Gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. Gilded is just the color. It's a basic gold powder. And I'll hit that with my heat tool until it's smooth and melted. Now, I did have a little tiny spot where my red nail polish transferred onto the card base, so I used a sand eraser to clean that up, and then my card was completely finished. So here's the final card for day 15. I really love how it turned out. I love the color palette. I love the pattern mixing and the softness of the watercolor paper and those really soft, pale diluted colors. So on screen right now, I've got a couple more cards for you to check out. These are from day 15 of the Holiday Card Series for the years 2017 and 2016. And if you want to see even more day 15 videos from years past, you can check that out in the video description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on Friday for day 16.